He didn't need a spotlight, he didn't need a script, he didn't need to smile. Because when Peter Lorimer struck the ball, it didn't just move. It exploded. A right foot like a cannon, a shot that bent air and snapped nets. Clocked at up to 90 miles per hour, he turned goalkeepers into ghosts. They called him Hotshot. Not to sell boots to warn defenders he was coming. And yet, despite 238 goals, the most in Leeds United's history football, looked away. No statue outside Elland Road, no mural in the city, no tribute woven into the modern game. His name echoes, but quieter each year. Forgotten by an era that never saw him strike. Barely remembered by one that did. But this isn't about silence, it's about what came before it. The roar, the loyalty, the fear in defenders before the shot even left his foot. He was the youngest to ever wear white for Leeds and the man who never truly left the club. This is Peter Lorimer. Not forgotten, not here. Subscribe if you still believe the legends who gave everything should never be left in silence. Peter Lorimer was born on the 14th of December 1946 in Dundee, Scotland, a place where winters bit hard and footballs didn't glide, they thudded through the mud. There were no academies, no contracts, just street corners, factory noise, and a ball that never stopped moving. From the beginning, his strike made people look twice. Not because of how he moved, but because of the sound the ball made when he hit it. He was different, not polished raw. By 14, word had reached England. Leeds United sent scouts north, and they didn't hesitate. He moved south. Alone. Still a boy. But the boots he wore already had weight. Then came history. 29th September 1962. Aged 15 years and 289 days, Peter Lorimer made his debut for Leeds United away to Southampton, the youngest player to ever wear the shirt. That record still stands. He wasn't there to make up numbers, he was there to detonate. By 16, he was scoring. By 17, defenders stopped diving. By 18, crowds were flinching before the shot even left his foot. Free kicks, half volleys, left or right, it didn't matter. What mattered was this. When Lorimer struck the ball, you didn't just see power, you heard it and you felt it. Elland Road had never seen anything like him, and it never would again. When Don Revie turned Leeds United into a machine, Peter Lorimer became the hammer inside it. In Revie's rigid 4-4-2, Lorimer was the unpredictable weapon, a winger who didn't just cross, but struck from angles that shattered defenses. His shot was the chaos in the order. This wasn't just football, it was architecture. Every pass, every tackle built with precision. But someone had to break the silence, and Lorimer did that with thunder. From 1965 to 1974, he was ever present. In 1968, he scored in the League Cup final at Wembley. In 1969, Leeds were crowned First Division champions. Lorimer scored 15 league goals that season. Against Manchester United in 1970, he fired a 30-yard rocket that left Alex Stepney rooted. No keeper in England could have stopped it. That ball didn't curl, it exploded. Stepney never moved. The net? Gone. In 1972, they lifted the FA Cup, and he played every step of that climb. In 1968, he scored in the Intercities Fairs Cup, triumph, his thunder echoing across Europe. He wasn't carrying the team, he was part of the armour. Alongside Billy Bremner, Jack Charlton, Norman Hunter, Eddie Gray, Alan Clark, Lorimer wasn't the loudest. He was the most dangerous. His shots didn't dip, they detonated. From 30 yards, from angles that shouldn't exist, in rain, on frozen turf, under pressure, 238 goals in 705 appearances. Still the highest scorer in Leeds United history. 168 in the league, 30 in the FA Cup, 19 in Europe. He didn't pick favourites, he punished everyone. No one since has come close. Jack Charlton once said Lorimer had the most dangerous right foot he'd ever seen. Defenders backed off. Goalkeepers didn't guess, they prayed, and teammates just ducked. This wasn't flair, it was force. And in the most disciplined side England had ever seen, Lorimer was the one man who played like the rules didn't apply. He won in England, but what he lost in Europe never left him. 28th May 1975, the European Cup final. Leeds United versus Bayern Munich, Paris. It was Lorimer's moment, the final stage, the one prize they hadn't yet taken. The match was brutal, scrappy, ugly. Then the ball broke loose. Clark dummied. Lorimer struck, top corner. 1-0 Leeds. Elland Road erupted. Televisions lit up. Even the commentators shouted, "That's it, Leeds lead." But the referee, he blew his whistle. No goal. Clark ruled offside. Interfering with play, they said. Referee Michel Kitabjian made the call, and 40,000 Leeds fans in Paris fell into stunned silence. It was the 65th minute, and it still haunts them. It was one of the most debated decisions in European football history. Bayern went on to win 2-0, and Europe slipped through Lorimer's hands. There were protests, riots in the stands. Years later, fans still call it a theft. For Lorimer, who had fought through every round, who had delivered Leeds to this final, it was more than a goal disallowed. It was a crown denied. He never complained, never raised his voice. The absence that echoed louder never stopped ringing, because that shot the one ruled out still echoes louder than most that count. Not every legend needs a parade. Some just keep moving. Peter Lorimer earned 21 caps for Scotland, and in 1974 he stood on the biggest stage of them all, the World Cup in West Germany. He scored against Zaire. A clean finish, not a thunderbolt, but one that mattered. Scotland were the only team to leave the 1974 World Cup unbeaten, but still didn't qualify. Knocked out on goal difference. No outrage, no rewrite, just quiet disappointment. Lorimer didn't rage, he packed his boots and moved forward. After Europe, after Elland Road, he kept playing. Lorimer went to Canada, played for Toronto Blizzard and Vancouver Whitecaps, but even then, he came back. In Toronto, from 1979 to 1983, he scored 22 goals in 87 appearances. AstroTurf, empty stands, but the cannon still fired. Then the Vancouver Whitecaps taking that right foot across the Atlantic to stadiums with sunshine, silence, and plastic turf. He still struck the ball like it had insulted him, still trained like he had something left to prove. But it was never quite home. That would always be Leeds. He returned to England, finished his career at York City, scoring 8 goals in 29 matches before quietly hanging up his boots for good, and walked off the pitch with nothing left to chase. Because no matter where the game took him, he never stopped carrying Leeds United inside him. Even oceans away, he wore the white shirt in his blood. Some players leave, some stay in the photos. Peter Lorimer came back. In the early 1980s, he returned to Leeds older, slower, but still carrying that same quiet fire. He pulled on the shirt one last time, played a handful more matches, then stepped off the pitch, but never left the club. Eddie Gray once said, "You didn't watch Peter's shots, you braced for them." They made him a director, a voice on the radio, an ambassador without ever needing the title. He didn't sell nostalgia, he protected it. When young players came through the tunnel, he was there, a quiet figure in the stands, watching like a man who still knew what that badge meant. He never shouted, never stood in the spotlight. But the fans knew. Even with grey in his hair and a mic instead of a ball, they still called him Hotshot. Some legends don't fade. They settle into the bricks of Elland Road, into the memory of what football once felt like. Peter Lorimer didn't return for attention. He returned because Leeds was home. And when home calls, you answer. On 20 March 2021, Peter Lorimer passed away after a long illness. He was 74. Outside Elland Road, someone tied an old number. 7 scarf to the gate. No words. Just a scrap of paper that read, "Hotshot forever." That's who remembered him. Not the media. The people Leeds United did what they could. There were statements, black armbands, moments of silence before kickoff. But outside Elland Road, football kept moving. No statue, no nationwide campaign, no lasting tribute on the shirts. Just another headline, just another scroll on a feed. Elland Road named a hospitality suite after him. Quiet, Fitting, but still, too small for a legend who gave them thunder. He gave them 238 goals, gave them trophies, finals, decades, stayed through rise and ruin, came back when others didn't. Leeds weren't title contenders anymore. The glory had faded, but Lorimer still returned because some loyalty doesn't care where the table stands. And still the wider game let him go without ceremony. There were no chants across the leagues, no murals painted overnight, no flash of remembrance in the Premier League machine. Don Revie once said, Peter didn't score goals, he launched them. In that 4-4-2, Lorimer wasn't just a winger, he was the detonator. Fans didn't just chant his name, they warned defenders, Lash Lorimer's lining it up, and keepers prayed it'd go wide. Fans still whispered, Hotshot when he walked past the stands. The ones who still hear the net snap when they close their eyes. The ones who saw him strike and never forgot how it felt, because Peter Lorimer never shouted. And in death, the noise he didn't make was echoed by the silence that followed. And that silence? It says less about him, and more about what football forgot. They called him Hotshot. But off the pitch, Peter Lorimer was anything but fire. He was quiet, private, measured. He didn't give interviews unless he had to, didn't chase headlines, never acted like a star. He let the goals speak, and even then, he kept them humble. There was no persona, no rehearsed answers, just a man who believed that if you played hard and stayed loyal, that would be enough. And for a time it was. Managers trusted him, teammates leaned on him, fans respected him. But history? It rarely remembers the ones who don't raise their hands. Peter Lorimer could have shouted, could have sold the myth, but he chose something harder: to stay, to serve, to strike and step back. Because for him, it wasn't about being great. It was about doing the job until there was nothing left to give. He didn't ask for a farewell match, didn't ask for applause, didn't ask for the world to remember. Because Peter Lorimer never truly left. He's still there in the sound of the ball when it hits clean and hard at Elland Road. He's still there in every number. 7 shirt worn by a kid who dreams of making the net snap before the keeper can move. He's in the turf, in the tunnel, in the hush that falls just before the crowd erupts. Because legacy doesn't always stand tall in bronze. Sometimes it lives in white stitched into a badge, echoed in a chant, remembered in the roar. 238 goals, 705 games, a right foot like thunder, a life given to one club. He didn't ask to be remembered, but he deserves to be. Not because of noise, but because of what silence can mean when it's carried with honor. Peter Lorimer is not forgotten, not here, not now, not ever. Subscribe if you believe football's quietest legends deserve to live forever.